media res. So like this is the beginning of the show right now, just right now. Because
Mhm.
first off, the other thing that everyone else does is this one. To me, this is my favorite start of all live videos after they've been live. And they're like wiggling their mouse around, like a lot of this, you
Oh
know.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
why are you, you realize that when someone comes to watch this, they're going to have to watch you sit there like a stupid idiot for like 4 minutes. So you might as well start at the start. So that's what we did.
It's like those show openers where when their name comes up on the screen, they're like doing something and then they go,
Welcome.
and then they look just the right time.
Oh
Oh,
my
hey.
gosh. Yeah. That's my one knock on Ecamm Live. It's my knock on this as well. They're not made to really run a show, and they should. StreamYard is built for this. There should be like, throw in your starter video, throw in your bumpers and all that kind of stuff. I would pay even more for that.
They're made
But
for live shows though, and for some reason they think that live can't
means
include
no
bumpers.
production value.
But like in every other context, there's bumpers and stuff. Like Saturday Night Live has them. I don't know why.
Yeah.
I don't know.
And I really need to learn some things because like I can put my logo in that corner. That's what I've learned. I can't move it anywhere. If I want it down like over your left arm or something, I don't know where to put it. It's like,
You can
here's your
design
logo.
whatever you want as an overlay and put your logo wherever you'd like it.
Yeah, I don't know how that works
In
either. Like,
StreamYard.
so
You
that's
just
why
make
you're
like a
here.
transparent image and then put the one thing on it. It's basically
You've already said words I don't know. I mean, I know there's a technology.
You can do it. That's what I'm telling you.
Kerry, you have yet another title, a marketing profs, because it's been almost a year, so you needed a new one. What's your title this time? You're something of director of bosses or something?
Director of Learning Experience Design. But the title that I put on the business cards, the only one I'll put is host of the Marketing Smarts podcast.
Yeah,
it's the only one that hasn't changed.
Which some people revere. Like some people really think that to be a podcast host is kind of a big deal now. And I keep thinking, anyone with a smartphone and a record button, could be a podcast host. But
yeah,
that's on the poop side of things. What I want to talk about today is your production value, your skill, your research, because you fall into that category of people like my friend Jeff Brown from Read to Lead and a few others that do this like arcane art called research. Like you ask kind of questions based on people's backgrounds and things like that. And you hosting either audio or video, you bring a lot of content and extra material to it. What got you to that mindset and what are you thinking when you start putting together an episode?
Oh man. So, all right. So I'm a lawyer and I don't practice anymore, but I came up through, I did law review and stuff, which is where you write articles and do research and stuff in law school if you make a certain grade point average. So for our article in law review, you had to have a citation for every single sentence. I couldn't say here in New England, it gets cold in the winter without having a citation to like the Farmer's Almanac or something. So it's just kind of how I'm wired. So before I talk to someone, even now, like in a completely different context about marketing, about nothing legal at all, like no one's going to read back the record and say that I was wrong about stuff.
Right.
I still will go and look at their body of work to the extent that I can. And like if you've written like 9-10 books, I can't read them all right before I talk to you, but I've read them over the years. So I'll like give a refresher to whatever the newest one is that we're talking about. I'll look at your other interviews, not so much to learn about you more, but so that I don't cover the exact same thing again. Because
that already there, that's something that nobody does. You know that, right?
Well, no, I don't. But I mean, you don't say the same things everywhere. Some people do. They have these sort of like sound bites that are ready made for Twitter or something, and they drop them in. And that's fine to a point, but I don't want to cover the same ground because they could go listen to that like 5, 6, 7 other places the same book launch week. So I want to dig a little deeper and get past this, and get to some of like the soft knowledge and application type stuff. So I see what they've talked about and what they haven't, and then talk about what they haven't.
What I never say is make your buyer the hero. That's never say. No, I'm with you.
Heard that. Wait, I'm gonna write that down.
Never anywhere since 06. It's your point is, and I want to drill down just a tiny bit more. People come on as a guest ready to be a robot because they're so afraid. It's not their fault. But they're just so worried they're not going to say the right things and they're not going to get their points across that they like practice and rehearse them. How do you shake them out of that method?
So I have 2 ways that I do it. If they are really nervous and they want to do a prep call, I'll do a prep call which, you know, I wouldn't ask like an experienced person like you or like Tom Webster or something, you know, or Tamadeer, I call her Tamsin Webster. I wouldn't ask them to do a prep call. They don't need it. They're very versatile. They're very comfortable. But people who are newer to being interviewed and are afraid that they're going to say something stupid, I will do a prep call and we'll talk about what they enjoy discussing, especially if they've been pitched to me by somebody else. I'll encourage them to do a prep call because a lot of those people that get pitched for podcasts haven't done a lot of podcasts. That's the reason they need someone to pitch them. And so they're not comfortable. And sometimes, this is going to shock you, I know, but sometimes the third parties doing the pitching don't know what they're talking about. And so when I know, so when I talk to the person, I'm like, okay, they say you want to talk about this, this, and this. They're like, I know nothing about that. I don't know what that is. And so then we'll hit on like 3-4 different things they can talk about. And now they're much more comfortable. And I'm like, oh, thank God we had this conversation because that would have been rough. The other thing I'll do with somebody that has experience but that I don't know is just spend like 2 minutes talking about nothing at all. Just some dumb thing, like how I just, you know, tripped over my guitar on the way to the table or something, or like whatever, what the weather is, literally anything, just to kind of shake them up and get them a little more relaxed. And then they feel comfortable with me and it becomes like a regular conversation, which is what you want.
How do you, so I'm really bad at this. Actually, I want to sort of preempt this. So around Boston on NPR, there was this great show by this guy, Christopher Lydon, who was like a very early podcaster dude as well. Christopher Lydon had this show called The Connection. And it was an interview show, and he would bring on these guests. And he had sort of like a timbre about him and all that, where like, you know, his voice carried some weight. He was notorious in my mind. And I had a thing against him. I was very anti-Lydon because he would cut off guests all the time. But looking back, the guy who replaced him, who I've come to appreciate, Tom, what's his name that I can't remember, Tom would let guests talk until they were dead. He would never, ever, ever, ever interrupt a guest. And you'd be sitting there going, oh my gosh, we got it, guy. Because people tend to repeat or redouble or whatever. And, you know, they'll say, I don't like salad. And then they'll say, I don't like tossed salad. I don't like, you know, iceberg salad, you know, and you're like, I get it.
It's my favorite when they're like, well, as I said, and you're like, ugh.
Exactly.
If you said it well the first time, I would be asking you to say it.
and shut him. He just like overloaded them. Like he'd be like, yeah. And what you're saying, and like, I'm so bad at it. I think you're better at it. What's your method
I'm so not better at it. Oh,
are you bad at it?
So okay, I edit my own shows, and because of that, I work very hard not to make work for myself in the post-production phase. So it's easier to let someone finish their sentence, whether or not I think it's ultimately going to stay, right, than it is for me to interrupt them in the moment, because now I have made a little bit of a mess of the audio, because like they'll drop or something, their volume will drop. And if they were just about to make a great point, like I screwed it up. So I let them talk longer than I should, but it's not like forever. I will get to the point where I'll make a noise or something where I realize I want to break in. So, like,
you did the like, or
yeah, something. Oh my God, so much. It's so embarrassing to listen to myself because I'll be like, and I'm like on to the next thing. Yeah,
so since starting, they are. Since starting podcasting in 2005, I used to edit a lot. And as I get older and grumpier, I don't edit like almost ever. Like I'll leave all your all that sort of a thing. So I haven't for a long, long time had that experience of, you know, kind of throwing the cans on and watching and like visually scrubbing out But there's something very intimate about working with someone's language, isn't there? Can you talk a little bit about what that feels like when you're actually in the screen editing their stuff?
So when I have the conversation with you live, I'm very much present and I'm not thinking about those things a lot. And so listening to it, I'm listening to it fresh actually, and I'll forget some of the things that we've talked about. I'll forget some of the stuff I said, which is always fun. So yeah, it's fun listening to it. Actually, I come to it kind of fresh. I had to get used to listening to my own voice, which I didn't care for, frankly, but I'm like, well, it is what it is. And then I'll get to the point where I can spot in people's timeline, like their audio track. I have a separate track for the guest and an audio track for me. And I see the spikes that correspond to ums. I can actually kind of spot them myself now.
They always look lumpy, don't they?
Yeah, they have a certain look to them. Stuff like that. So I can clean it up, you know, pretty quickly. And for most people though, I mean, breathing is normal. The
Right.
occasional is normal. Like I won't go in there and do major surgery unless it's really necessary to salvage the whole thing. And at times it has been necessary in those episodes.
Yes. We've never talked about that privately, about people that you really had to edit the absolute Jesus out of, but
No, because I'm a lady.
right. Very professional. And you
No,
would
they're
never want
so
someone to think it
no.
was them.
It's never the people that are very practiced speakers, you would think, right? They're if anything, all I have to do is kind of shove them off their prepared talking points, and we have this amazing conversation. There's no there's no uncertainty. They're very sure-footed, self-assured. But there's other people that aren't, and so one of these people that I had to edit the bejesus out of was an executive who hadn't had a lot of experience being interviewed. She's super nervous. They insisted I give her questions. Like her team insisted I give her questions, which I hate. So she had studied up. She actually prepared answers, but she didn't want to sound as though she had. And so she was saying them and throwing in like every few words. I think it was every third or fourth word. So it would sound spontaneous. And I had to edit it out or not use the episode at all.
Because otherwise it sounds like a weird robot thing.
Right.
You know?
And in this case, I had to use the episode because of, who she was and the company and like
right.
Sales really wanted it. They were really excited about it. So I was like, okay. So I snip.
Well,
snip,
Kerry,
snip,
I'm
snip,
a
snip.
professional, and I believe in the power of spontaneity.
Yes.
So,
it was just like that.
Machinery.
And it was painful, and I was hating life for about 3 hours a day.
So you are, you're doing learning experience design type work over at Marketing Profs. You've had a lot of different roles at Marketing Profs, which is how I led this thing. The Marketing Smarts podcast is your primary product there. And some people convinced you finally to start another podcast because you didn't have enough to do and you didn't have more things to edit. So you're on season 4 at this point. Do you want to talk about this podcast?
Punch Out with Katie and Kerry. Originally, I just wanted to talk about something other than work with the people that I was interviewing, because a lot of everybody has something interesting in their background, something unexpected. And every once in a while that surfaces. Like you're the king of surfacing weird stuff that has nothing to do with the business topic on the table. Most people, it's not that easy. I mean, I have to dig a little, but something personal in their background will come out. One guy literally went to clown college. David Meerman Scott had modeled in Japan. Like that came up at one point. Just things like that. And I still want to talk about it, right? But it's a marketing show, and this episode is about analytics, or this episode is about, marketing the moon. And it's like, I can't go down that rabbit hole because it will take the whole time. So I wanted a podcast where that was the whole thing. I wanted like the muffin top of podcasts.
The muffin top of podcasts.
Yeah. The part of
please get someone saying that like as a candid quote, because I think that would be a thing. The muffin top of podcast. I'm also thinking I stopped listening after you said David Meerman Scott modeled in Japan, which you told me before once, or I think I heard it on the show. I thought that'd be a great business card. David Meerman Scott. I once modeled in Japan. That is, what else could you put on your business card that's going to be as cool as that?
Nothing. So you have to lead with that, which is amazing. It's just kind of crazy. So, I mean, I had talked with him about his travel and scuba diving a little bit. Look at some of those rapport kind of things, and never that. And so when that came up, I was like, all right, this is ridiculous. Like, I've got to find a way to have a conversation about that.
That's right.
And that was the show. And so the way Katie Robert got involved, I'd met her at Marketing Profs B2B Forum. She's the CEO of Christopher Penn's business, Trust Insights. She and he co-own it at the analytics company. And so anyway, that was my first time meeting her, and I just like instantly loved her. She's another Boston person, and we totally clicked. Like our sense of humor just clicked. And so I had breakfast with her. Like it was December, and I told her about my idea for this podcast. She said, I want to co-host it with you. And that's like such a Boston person thing to do. Like nobody in Nashville would do that. Even if they thought that, they wouldn't say that. So she came right out. Yeah, they wouldn't. No, they might want to. And they'd be like, oh, that sounds real fun. I would like to try something like that. But they would never ask you. And she just did. Yeah, she's like, I want to do it. I think this would be amazing. And she was so right. So she's brought to it so much. Like she'll notice patterns that I miss because, again, I'm very entrenched in the conversation, and she's seeing patterns like, hey, all your hobbies are, immersion type hobbies where you can't think about anything else. Or like she just spots patterns that I don't. And she's very insightful. And damn, is she funny. So
she is funny. And that's not something I expect from her. And I partly blame it on working with Penn. Like I feel like you must also be a ninja robot to work with Penn. And obviously she needs to be the opposite of Penn because, it's
Chris
dangerous.
he's funny actually as hell. It's
He's
just
ultra
a
funny.
whole different kind of funny. Yeah.
Yeah. It's always like in parentheses funny.
Like I could murder you if I wanted.
We in the history of knowing him since like the second time I ever met him, every time we shake hands, he shows me some new variation on how to kill me from my wrist. So like that's all you need to know about Penn.
I'm surprised you get the handshake. I mean, that just shows you how much he cares about you.
I don't know that I ever will again. I think post-COVID, I think he will like roll into the room in his ball and say something.
It's entirely possible.
Penn
He had the mask before the mask was trendy.
Exactly. Penn had that big ass Darth Vader mask that you now own, long before the rest of the world wore it.
Mm-hmm. And it
people in Hong Kong would be looking at him going, "Dude, really?"
I know. And he would just have a cold or something, like a little bit of a sniffle, and he'd break it out. And people were like, "Come on, man!" But now it's totally normal.
So you and I double dipped to do this recording because I asked you to, because I wanted to talk about like you as the host. Ben Fanning has asked the question, hey, speaking of, I was a male model in Japan, what are the credentials that people are going to care about in the new normal? This sounds like an important question, so I feel like it's not going to match the tenor and tone of the rest of, Muffin Top podcasting here. But what do you think about that?
People will never not care that you were a model in Japan.
You just changed your role. But I mean, Ben's right. And so like I think about this all the time. So as an entrepreneur in this world where all of our revenue dropped and we're like all trying to like, suddenly like hooker ourselves and be like, hey, company, look at me. I will never fill out one of those HR forms ever in my life. The one time I ever even tried to talk to HR people instead of just get hired into some process, it was the worst. So he's got a point. What do people do to get hired right now? And what's the thing people are going to look at? What's the new handshake?
So there's been a handful of credentials that have been of use to me my whole life. One of them is graduating first in my law school class, and it doesn't seem to matter what context that comes up in. It doesn't have to be law. That actually carries me a long way to open doors for whatever reason, even hosting gigs and stuff. And it's like, what does that have to do with anything? I don't know. But certain things like that you keep kind of forever, but a whole bunch of other stuff I let go of. Like I have an MBA in international business and it matters not at all. I don't even remember what classes I took. I couldn't tell you. It does not matter at all.
Right.
Things like that. So at this point, your agility in business is going to be way more important than anything you can show on paper. So it's kind of like, hey, I've had, 17 roles in the last 6 years, not at different companies, but, as our needs evolved at Marketing Profs, I move. I've got the skill set and I move. Like I've been in education since 2006, teaching courses to college students, graduate students, now doing training for adult learners, non-traditional learners, all this stuff. So all that rolls into doing a lot of different things, even content. It's like your content needs to be educational. So you need a certain skill set. And I just kind of grow the skill set and apply it in different contexts. If you can show that you've done the same thing, it's going to be much easier. If you've done like one thing for the last 7 years, I mean, that's going to be tough to show that you can pull up stakes and do something else. But if you've done a million different things, I actually think you're in better shape. As long as there's like a through line, you can show how it aligns to your skills.
That is like a huge highlighter on the screen kind of statement because, and I hope Fanning's still here. In the old days, if you had that kind of like frenetic sense to your CV, you look like a turd burger. Like you look like the worst kind of person. Don't hire this person. I think you're right. I think it's going to matter that's the new look.
It used to make you look flaky, but if you think of it like, all right, so let's say you start out in carpentry and then you move over and you become an electrician and then you become a plumber. It's like eventually you can build a whole house by yourself. That's valuable.
Yeah.
It's like that in business too. Like you learn how to do reports and it's boring. Then you learn more about analytics. You learn about communication, presentation, writing. You learn about elocution and how to present results in a persuasive way. So eventually you have the whole package. Like you can be useful in a whole lot of ways. And that's what people need right now. They don't need like one person who can do just one thing. You need somebody who can do a whole lot of stuff because everything's changing every day.
Right. What does hosting, I mean, the editing part's baloney, but what is hosting things like a podcast and or webinars and or the other formats you do? What does that bring you for skills when Marketing Profs finally says, thanks, Kerry, catch you later?
Oh, problem solving on the spot is huge. Anything event related, there's like a million things that go wrong that you didn't think about and didn't plan for. and you have to come up with a solution for. So we've had speakers drop, say, the day before an event is supposed to happen online. So you've got to have a really good network of people versed in a lot of different topics, so you can tap them to come and do a presentation. You've got to be able, ideally, to do a presentation yourself if you have to. So that's something I can do that maybe some event planners couldn't do, like, because we present on marketing, so I can talk about it if I have to. So there's a lot of agility that comes with that, writing, and in every different context for every different audience, writing scripts, writing ebooks, writing articles, all these things, but always with an eye toward what are people going to be able to do after this is over that they couldn't do before. And that's kind of my through line, like helping people to do things they couldn't do before, whether that's talking with someone in a podcast like you. When you talk about Story Leader, I wasn't like, oh, that's cool. I was like, what can people do with this? How can B2B people take Story Leader and use it today? Well, I've heard that on podcasts. It drives me insane, where people are like, oh, I love that. And they have no follow-up questions whatsoever. It's like they're just also watching with you. And it drives me insane. You're like, but what do you do with it? Like, how do you kind of unbox it and use it and stuff? So that's what I do there. But I'm a content creator and an educator. And those two things I can do in about any context. So at this point, I can create content for video, for audio, written. I can package the same thing up 100 different ways. I can build courses from scratch and turn them into something else later when you want an infographic or a handout or whatever. I can do it all.
I can't remember if you were here for the Steve Garfield episode of Catch Up. Just kidding.
I was, though.
You were definitely here. I crapped on all of the Jimmys and Jameses for being really bad at being at-home hosts. I wonder if you watched any of their stuff, if you sort of had that same sort of feeling. And I wonder if there is now space again, like in the old podcasting days. My friends, Steve's friends, we all had this opinion that we were going to take over for the media. We were the media, and we're coming up, and like all those guys are going to get bumped out because they couldn't possibly compete with how cool we were. That did not happen, it turns out. I thought it was. I felt for a minute we were there. And then like all the big media said, oh, podcasting, we get it. We can throw our archives on there. Got it. And then they rolled away. What do you think about the benefit of having a media hosts at levels like you and me? And what does that mean for going forward? And will there be kind of a space for this now that there's kind of this eat the rich feeling in the air right now?
It does. It feels very dangerous. I was actually surprised that people like Jimmy Fallon and other people I was seeing didn't have better setups at home. I know it sounds ridiculous, but I can't imagine it. And maybe it's just because I came at it from a completely different direction than him. It's like when they host, they've got teams of people whose job it is to anticipate problems and solve them. They show up and they're the talent. It's like, sure, I'm the talent, but I have to like hold up this entire tent too, with technologically and stuff. And so it's valuable knowledge to have, as we've discovered. So now I think there's room, like our voices are actually being heard more clearly because our technology is better. Like Steve says, put your laptop on some books and level it up. Sounds stupid, but it makes everything look more polished, and people subconsciously respond to you in a different way. They view you as more authoritative, more trustworthy. They'll watch longer than if your sound is terrible, people just go, even if it looks great. So, I mean, that's what we're seeing now. Now we're really judging the quality of their content totally apart from their production value. And in some cases, it's wanting. It's just not great.
What's the name of that new Twitter account? Is it Zoom Room Raider or something? Or is it Skype Room Raider?
I've heard of it. Yeah, I think it's Skype something Raider, yeah. But I was like...
They just gave Obama 10 out of 10.
And Skype come back. Yeah, but Skype's not coming back. Forget it.
They just gave Obama 10 out of 10, and I think they're wrong. I think they were voting with their heart, not with their eyes. But,
probably. I haven't liked really any of the virtual backgrounds, not because I have a problem with the background itself. It's just it's distracting that they'll sort of pixelate now and then because the person will be moving, and because you can't not move. Like realistic. Like somebody tried to show me a book they were reading. They just went to pick it up and go, "Hey, I'm reading this book and I super like it," and it messed up their whole background. Oh, do you? This is such a good book. So Sam Conniff spoke at Spark Me in Montenegro. And his whole thing is about, so this book is about golden era pirates. That's what he calls them. And how they were excellent marketers. They didn't actually kill as many people as you think. Like Blackbeard, he would just be like, oh, I'm going to kill a bunch of people. And people would believe him and they would just give him their stuff. It's a brilliant marketing message, right? But they were also really socially progressive. So they had workers' compensation for pirates that like lost a limb serving and stuff. And they did things equal pay for women and stuff, for example. They did things that no one at the time had done. So this whole book is like how we can learn from them and how modern era like shit disturbers basically can get stuff done.
I
It's a
love it.
great book. You should pick it up.
I
Yeah.
love it. Well, I
Yay, I
should
love
point
Jay.
out that now that he's got his haircut, future catch-up guest Jay Bear just showed up.
I love him.
And Steve Garfield, who's playing Kerry in the comments today. Room Raider is at Rate My Skype Room on Twitter.
Thank you, Steve.
Kerry in the comments sounds like such a WEEI Sports Radio Boston kind of nickname.
This is Kerry in the comments. I want to be Kerry in the comments on your show now. I'll be like up in the background with my
Kerry in the comments. That's all you
Kerry in the
get.
comments. That's all. That's it. I
There's
won't be
such a
producer.
humor about that though. You're like first in your class lawyer, super international business law degree, very successful career. Oh, it's Kerry in the comments.
Well, these my comments. So this is funny. I get a lot of compliments actually on my GIF game. Like, I don't know if you call it GIF or GIF, like
Yeah.
whatever your thing. I take no part in that argument, but I always have the right GIF at the right time. And people are like, oh
Yes,
my
you
gosh,
do.
you're really good at it. It's my memory. Like they'll think I have some GIF skills. It's my memory. I have a really good memory for movie lines and stuff. And I'll be like, there is a perfect line for that. It was in Mystery Men. I'm going to go and find it. And it is always out there. And I'm like, boom, I plucked it. I put it right where I need it. So my superpower is memory. It's not gifts. It just translates well.
That's interesting to me. That's interesting that little distinction, because it plays the same. You know what I mean? This is making me think of movies like The Prestige, where you find out at the end that the real trick is this, and you're like, wait a minute.
Yeah, no spoiler alerts, no like 15-year-old spoilers.
Oh, well, that's what your fellow Nashville comedian Nate Bargatze, what's his first name? Nate Bargatze. He was saying he was going to make a joke about Sixth Sense, and he says, but it's kind of got the spoiler built into the joke. And he says, but don't anyone say to me, oh, I was planning to watch that tonight. Just stop by at Blockbusters. And,
but you don't know. You don't know now because so many things are new again on Netflix or whatever.
Totally true.
Yeah.
My parents, I by the way, I have a place in hell for people who spoil things. I actually unfriended somebody for spoiling the Star Wars most recent set of Star Wars biggest spoiler. And look, see John Michael Morgan. It's like I have a Nashville bat signal out. What the hell happened?
Oh, I met him at Social Slam 20.
You did?
Mm-hmm.
How do you get to be so lucky? The only thing better than meeting John Michael Morgan, who is an absolute handsome snack of a man, all in and of himself, is to meet Brooke Morgan as well. Like, that's like a buffet at that point.
Well, I think smartest. I met Ian Cleary, John Michael Morgan, Sean McGinnis, and who else? Georgia Cross, all the same night, like all these amazing people. And yeah, so that was a crazy, crazy good event. I know there were a lot more people. Oh, Amy Howell, met her there.
So, no way.
For the first time. So,
Amy Howell is in the Pantheon.
And Dino is it Dogan? I don't remember the Triber guy. And,
oh my gosh, yeah.
Yeah, because I had to ask him. I was like, I kind of don't get Triber. Like, can you tell me about it? I don't get it. I was too embarrassed to say it in a public, like, online forum where I was like, I don't get what this is. So
what's your thing do?
Yeah, so it was great. But so that's one of those moments. Like, that's why I miss in-person events, actually, because that's where I've met so many amazing people. And then we continue the relationship online and I get to see them kind of over the years. And we're just like robbing, like you just this morning talked with Sydney Nelson. She's 25 years old, getting started in her career. Without that opportunity to meet people in person and have the conversations that don't take place in public places online, like it's not as easy to build meaningful relationships with people. I really believe that. Like, you can go just so far online, and then you need to kind of take the measure of the person.
Right. Yeah, I was going to say in a previous episode of Catch Up, I interviewed other Nashville resident Sydney Nelson. I was going to make it sound like it could have been any time, because I'm a big fan of evergreen content. But that was the thing that I said is, you come to find really quickly that it's not just about your smarts; it's about the people you surround yourself with. And I have been really struck by, and this is such a not intentionally political comment.
I totally wanted to say smooth criminal, by the way.
Oh. Oh.
I'm sorry.
Now you're going to go find the gif of them like all leading at the same time.
I will.
I'm really struck by the picture of Obama walking in his protest march and Trump walking in his. And without it being a political statement, Trump is walking by himself and everybody's at least 25 feet away. Of course, there's COVID, by the way. But on the other one, it's Obama holding hands with like 3,000 people. It's amazing how many hands he has. And he's got his whole family in front. He's got all these civil rights leaders and all that. And it is striking because of that sense of your contacts and your connections. You just named like 800 people that you met the first time ever at that like event or
one
whatever. One event. And you've gone to more than one event, I think.
True.
My recollections are lost.
So I don't just like bounce around to events to meet people.
You say.
But I do afterwards, we're connect online. I support their work. I see what they're doing. I find ways to help them that have nothing to do, like, it can't possibly benefit me, right, to do some of the things that I will do for people, but I do it because I like them and I appreciate their work and I value what they're doing. And so, bless you. I think you should not have a cat. I've heard the cat in the background of some of your other interviews, and I think possibly you are allergic, but I don't know.
I would be more than happy to jettison that feature, but as you were.
So the key to building relationships long term isn't to just like bounce around and meet people and have a bit of a laugh together, although that is super important. It's what you do in between when you don't need anything from them. Just, pay attention to what they're doing and check in every once in a while and see what you can do to support them. I don't even ask, hey man, what's going on? You got something I can support? I'll just see, like, he's launching another podcast because he has a bunch, and I'll be like, oh, just launching a new podcast. Let's check it out and share it, or talk about his new book. Let's get him on, to talk about it. So for me, it's more like, following people's work who I admire in between times.
It's an interesting thing too. I would say that one of the biggest challenges we have in this space overall is we get the opportunity and the pleasure to make lots of friends, and some of the friendships are a little more loose than others. Some of the friendships, I guess there's thousands probably, and that's not an exaggeration. There are thousands of people who I've met that when I remember or think or put like even a little bit of focus on them, I go, oh, I really like that person. But there's an abundance of them. How do you show up as many places as you can? Do you show up as many places as you can? I mean, online as well. But like, how do you make sure that everybody knows they're loved in between? Because I feel like I'm the worst friend to all these people that I love, and then they end up walking away going, I don't think Brogan likes me very much. And it's not. It's just a volume challenge, I think.
Oh man, so I had to just take it easy on myself. I do what I can when it strikes me, and it might seem a little sporadic, actually. I don't have a system. I'm not like Neen James. Neen James is really good at this. She'll send notes to people daily. Not everybody daily, but like a handful of people. She'll send notes daily to stay in touch. Like, hey, I was just thinking of you. Hey, that you might like this book. Hey, check out this new podcast thing Brogan's doing. It's awesome. Like, whatever, just things. And she's super good at it. I'm not. I'll be like, I haven't talked to Ian Cleary in a while. He's cool. Let's see what he's doing. Like it just like occurs to me one day. Or I'll see them come through my feed or something like that. So I'm not as good at it as I should be even, but I do make an effort. Like when I think about it, I just happen to think about it a lot, I guess. I wish I was better.
Think that's why I launched the show called Catch Up. Because I'll never run out of things. My very first podcast was called Fat Guy Gets Fit, because as long as I never really got fit, then I could do it in perpetuity.
My first podcast was Baby Time because it was all about pregnancy. I'm like, as soon as pregnancy's over, if I don't like it, I don't have to do it anymore.
That makes me think of other Nashville resident, Dave Delaney, and his first was Two Boobs and a Baby.
Ooh, that's right. I remember that. Wow. Yep. That takes me back.
Those were the days.
He's so nice. He's one of the first people that when I moved here, because I'm from Boston, but I lived in Florida for 8 years outside of Orlando. And moved here. I know. And I moved to Nashville area like 3 years ago, and he was immediately like, let's get together. And you don't see that a lot. I'm so rubbish at that, by the way. Like when people are coming through town, I'm always like, yeah. I mean, there's days like I've driven into town just to have lunch with Brian Fanzo, or I've driven in just to, pick up like Chris Penn at something he was doing and bring him to his hotel and like have a drink in the lobby or something. Like we've done that. I've done those things. But there's also been times where I had plans to hang out with someone and all of a sudden it's like pouring rain out and I just don't feel like driving the half an hour.
Right.
So I'm not consistent with it, but I'm very consistent in loving those people. And I'm super loyal to their cause, if you know what I mean. Like I'll support the things they have coming up any way that I can. But when you say, "Oh, I hadn't thought about this person, and now that I realize I love them," it's like in that moment, I'll go, "Hey, I'm gonna go see what they're up to, and what things
Right.
of theirs I can share." I need to be better at it, though.
Don't we all really? We need to do a lot of things better. We need our websites are not so good. Like the kerrygorgone.com, your
Oh my God, please, it's so bad.
center of the universe website that everyone goes to,
So
and they're like,
bad.
wait a minute, hello?
It's terrible.
They knock on the lobby.
Because
No.
I for 7 years, I wrote for Mark Schaefer's Businesses Grow blog. And so I was creating content for him on the regular. I've been podcasting weekly for Marketing Profs for like 7 years. And then, so that's been actually every other week for this quarter, like just started doing every other week, but it's been every week, like kind of forever. And I do all my own production on it. And then I was doing a lot of other content creation type things, for work. So it's sort of like, which author was it that said, like, if you want to do really good creative work yourself, go get a job at a warehouse so that you have like the creative energy and space to do it when you
Right.
get home. It's like
Right.
that. It's like I kind of gave it the office.
Who was somebody super important? So I'm going to sound like such a stupid idiot for not remembering. Who was like the guy who was like a postal clerk?
Einstein? He was a patent clerk.
No, but a post office clerk who was like, it was like Dickens or someone. It's one of those. And that's why he did what he did. He just basically.
Yeah, you have to be able to like mentally check out and then go home and do
letters.
Do your creative work at home. Totally. Or you have to have a patron. I mean, there's been many a wonderful creative artists that at different points in their career had someone supporting them so that they could do the work that they were meant to do without the burden of having to work in a warehouse to make ends meet. So, but
I
anyway,
offered to repaint the Sistine Chapel, but they said no.
They said no thanks.
We're all good.
You're like, really? No one's going to see it for like a year. You might as well let me take a crack at it.
Yeah.
Right now.
It'll be like that Jesus restoration painting. Do you remember that one?
Oh, yes. Oh, my gosh. I would like that Tom Brady courtroom sketch. Sometimes you just have a bad day.
Yep. I remember. Oh, my gosh. And what's his face's statue? Ronaldo or whatever, the soccer guy? Yeah. They finally like showed it to him. And he was like, oh.
I was just you've got to kind of forgive yourself sometimes, though, for not doing your own website or for not keeping in touch with every single person. Like you can be great 90% of the time. And if that 10% of the time is when you happen to run into someone and you're just like don't have the bandwidth for it, that's what they'll remember. And it sucks, but it's like, that's life. I met somebody. So my kids let me think how many years ago this was. It was at Social Fresh and my kids had pneumonia, both of them, for 3 weeks. And I had not slept a wink because I would keep them in the bed with me and listen to their breathing and like monitor their oxygen and blah, blah, blah. So I went to Social Fresh because I got a press pass or something or a free pass. And one of my former students was there and she wanted to meet me. And I was like so completely dead. And I think it was a letdown for her. And I felt bad about it. And I was like, sorry, but this is like the suckiest time of this entire past like 3 to 5 years. Right now is the worst for energy level. It just sucked. And so then I told her what was going on. That's one thing that I've learned from you actually, is to be really transparent about all the shit that's going on in your life that no one knows about, because then they understand in context. And it's not just like, oh, Kerry doesn't like me. It's, oh man, Kerry hasn't slept in a month, like almost a month.
Maybe give her a break.
Yeah, maybe.
All right, we're heading out because that's what we do here. We leave. And we can't both do the Irish exit because that would be awkward.
I can't even push the button. You have to push the button. I'll just have to sit here until you do.
You taught me how to use this thing too. You, Dad, I learned it from you. All right. How much of your incredible memory capacity is locked in things like that? How many of your like thought processes are locked in remembering stupid 70s PSAs and things like that?
Brady Bunch episodes. So many.
George Glass.
Many. But I also have a mental Rolodex of all the things people have said over the years that were really smart or really not smart. Both of those inform my behavior with them in the future. So.
Oh my gosh, that just feels like you could just quote everything Ben Stiller says in Dodgeball or Zoolander, and you'd be golden.
Yeah.
All right, one last thing. Now that you're the whatever you said, you were the king of electronic learning or something, the marketing profs. I'm just gonna make up new titles each time.
The Wonder Woman of marketing training.
The Grand Visigoth of something. Look at Steve Garfield being Steve in the comments. Now we're up to more postmasters. Abraham Lincoln, Harry Truman, Benjamin Franklin was the guy who launched the post office in the United States.
So good.
Look, I have to say something. Like I am honored anytime someone comes to be on the show and just be in the audience and hang out. The fact that people like Ben and Bob came to both shows is ridiculous, and I'm grateful. Steve was Steve in the first show as well? Yeah. He was, right? Mm-hmm. He came to say hi. It's ridiculous. Don't we all have jobs? Shouldn't we be doing no?
The appropriate thing to say is thank you.
Oh, thank you. Viewers like you support this channel.
There you go.
Steve Carell was a mail carrier.
I love Steve.
Why is that fitting? I wish he would use his groove voice while he did it. All right, Kerry, I'm hitting the button. Everybody get out of this room already. Good to talk to you. Bye.